Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird.
Grown men watch this shit?
A podcast about indie wrestling.
Bird is a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 6 of
Grown men watch this shit, mate.
I appreciate the Aussiness on that one. Great job, pal. How's it going?
I'm doing better, sir. Everything's okay in my camp at the time being. How are things, as they say up here, down under?
Oh, in the down underland. Yeah, man, it's
Down
good.
under.
I actually was just watching, of all things, we did a poll on the Facebook the other night for myself and the lady, Courtney, our viewing for that evening. And the two movie options were Donnie Darko or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Wow.
So a bit of
that is a big difference.
bit of a spectrum there. And it was a
Hang on, let me guess. So I assume, did each one of you throw out an offering, or was it just both you guys came up with these? Like, did one of you pick one movie and one of you pick another? Don't tell me, just say yes or no.
no.
Oh, okay, then go. I assumed Courtney maybe would be the more of the Donnie Darko. Maybe you're the more of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is what I was getting at.
Yeah, that'd probably be true. I mean, they were both options for me because I don't know if you get this, but a lot of the time when you're doing a couple's viewing night, it can be quite difficult to actually make a choice. You know, you can spend like an hour on the Netflix trying to just scroll through shit or whatever. So
I call it analysis paralysis.
Oh, it's such a thing, and then you don't even end up watching a movie because you just spend so much time like trying to pick the movie. But anyway, so in those kind of situations, Courtney's just like, just suggest some things. Tell me what I'm going to watch. That's it. And I'm like, all right, 2 suggestions.
That's a similar experience in my book. Yeah, women basically throw it up. Hey, on you, buddy. It's similar to the restaurant thing where they say, I don't care, or they'll eat at whatever, when they really have something in mind, but they have no idea what exactly. You just know that you're probably going to fuck up the decision process in the long run.
It's a complicated psychological sort of exploration of trying to...
But in the long run, their partnership is so appreciated.
It truly
is what
is.
really comes out.
It really
Yes,
is.
sir.
But yeah, then we did the Facebook poll, and I was
Okay.
a little bit awestruck. I was trying to think of there's a gab, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a word, but it's not just
An Australian thing, maybe thunderstruck even?
Sure. I was just thunderstruck on this, mate. Pretty sure no one's ever said that, but that's okay.
Oh, I just go by the AC/DC thing, man. Sorry, apologize.
That's all right. But yeah, we got like 58 votes, and it really was like kind of head to head at points. You know, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sort of took the early lead, but then it like sort of came back, and it was pretty close. And then yeah, ended up with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as the poll winner, but not necessarily by as much as you would think. It was fun to see which way certain friends voted. You really take someone as a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids kind of person, and then they end up a Donnie Darko kind of person. And so it's an interesting deal. But then, yeah, so we ended up watching the film. For anyone that has not watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids recently, my gosh, it is a treat, and it holds up very, very well. We watched it on HBO On Demand, so if anyone has the HBO, you should be able to check that out. But yeah, just wonderful. But one of the takeaways from it was that Rick Moranis' character in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, without the sweet inventing skills, that's me. That was quite the scary thing. I'm pretty much everything about the character except for his skill.
All right. Well, 2 things. What are the other traits of him that are really recognizable as you, because outside of the inventory thing, he was pretty much a bad parent. You're a parent of dogs, so and then secondly, I give you one guess on which I would have sided with. Would
Ooh.
I have been a Donnie Darko man or a I Shrunk the Kids man?
It almost comes down to what mood you're in, you know? Like,
I hate one and I really love the other.
oh shit. Well,
Yeah, it's
I'm gonna. How can you hate Donnie Darko though?
there you go. I just feel like it's an overly up its own ass story. I don't mind the movie. I guess hate is strong. I just don't really care for the movie. I don't. In the long run, when it comes down to, I'm like, what did we just watch? It's like,
Hmm.
we're not really a movie show, but hey, I just was never a big fan of Donnie Darko or even that guy did Southland Tales, I think, with The Rock.
Oh
I wasn't a
fuck
fan of
yeah!
that film either.
Southland Tales was such a steaming pile of shit.
I don't need shit that I need to be explained. Like, I'm a pretty smart guy, but I don't need to have something that I need to have explained to me what I experienced afterwards, because that's the only way you can really know what's going on. But Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is so straightforward and amazing.
So
And
is.
there's an ant named Auntie.
Oh, oh my gosh!
Name for ants.
That
Auntie.
that ant bit that just took my heart like right. It just crushed me.
It was so great.
Oh.
And, like, the effects on the ant.
Oh, the
Like,
effects in the
it
whole
looked real.
movie.
Like, it was actually kind of moist looking. You know, like where you're actually like, well, that could be a real thing.
Yeah, that was a nice moist ant, is what that was. Mm.
If we ever had a shirt, nice moist ant
Yeah.
is probably one of the best quotes of all time.
I'd like that. I'd be proud to wear
Oh,
that.
beautiful.
But yeah, I
We
mean,
need
the
fans.
practical effects and the whole thing were very impressive. But the other thing,
Exactly.
and getting back to the character trait with Rick Moranis, mainly his
Yes, sir.
complete, just unorganized, just terrible with his time. He's like got this thing, then he's got this like roadshow presentation he's got to go. It's like, oh shit, just grabs all this stuff. The kids are having to feed themselves. You know, and then just his delightful just fucked upness, whereas like, you know, the most sensible way to try to find the kids in the backyard is with this fucking thing with stilts and a magnifying glass, and then he has the clothesline gimmick, and there were just a lot of bits that were quite close to home for me, to where I'm like, yeah, that probably would have been the way I would have gone about it.
I can see it. Like, it's one of those things where you're simultaneously scatterbrained but all in on everything.
And
Like, it's like I'm 100% committal on everything that's going on, but I have got everything on a spinning plate, so I have to do everything at once. So yeah, that makes sense.
And the other thing was he had big time heat with the wife. She was at the, you know, visiting the parents because they had a big fight. Most of which, by the looks of it, is because he doesn't do the house chores, and the place is looking like a piece of shit. Because he's not, you know, doing his part for the cleaning up and things like that. And I gotta say, I have been guilty of that myself in the past. So,
Are you sciencing? Are you sciencing at the same time?
I mean, I guess you could say I'm like doing my own thing with the art creative-y stuff. Like, is that the
Alright,
equivalent
fair.
of the science? But probably most of the
they're
time.
beautiful art pieces, but I don't think you're shrinking kids right now. But it's pretty beautiful.
Not quite. I mean, I
Gotta compliment you honestly on the David Arquette thing. Was super dope, by the way. I think maybe we should think about because, you know, I do a little bit of the doodling again. Not your freehand shit is way better, but maybe both think of doing like simultaneous projects and then release them around Showtime if that's something that appeals to you at all.
Oh man, that'd be really fun. I like the idea
Yeah.
of themed stuff, just as like art project kind of thing. It's great to have like just a thing where it's like, all right, this is what we're doing. Like on the Instagram, there are a lot of cool ones where they'll have like, you know, word of the week and things like that. And I find they're good just to do something.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, man, I'll be happy with that. That's cool.
Yeah, I gotta give you mad respect. Chris is an amazing artist, friends. I'm sure you all seen it, but especially like being so topical and you have such a unique style, buddy, that it's a unique voice, and you rarely see that, especially in the wrestling art community. People are just basically usually drawing the same picture they see it all, like, of a specific wrestler doing a specific pose. You have a specific wrestler in Chris's voice, so I want to give you mad respect.
Oh, thanks, brother. Yeah, no, I mean, I have fun with it. I try to, take something that I'll see from a photo or whatever, if I'm just like, that's fucking sick, and then I'll, try to do some sort of tribute to that. But yeah, I decided to go with David Arquette in his sweet trunks from his new look. He's got the robe. Oh, I think it's happening. Is this David Arquette watch?
Well, first off, the beautiful art piece was definitely an inspiration by the return to the ring of one David C. Arquette. I added a middle initial. I'm not sure if that's accurate. So Mr. Arquette has made his return to the ring against RJ City at Championship Wrestling of Hollywood, and it was everything and much adulated by all of the internet. Every wrestler I saw that either was in attendance or helped, put something together could not say a nicer thing about David Arquette. And watching the match myself, wow, like, come on, people, shut the fuck up. David Arquette is doing the damn thing. Have you seen the entire match, or at least some clips of this match here, Chris?
Yeah, I've seen some of the clips. I didn't know the actual full match was up. As the actual episode aired, Championship Wrestling Florida, where his part is in.
No, I was asked. I haven't seen the whole thing either. I was just saying.
Oh, okay, cool. No, well, I saw sort of the highlights that were released. I think maybe TMZ, something like that. But yeah, dude. Oh,
actually, I think it was Pro Wrestling Sheet, which is like a TMZ for the internet. No, I'm just kidding. Ryan Satin, who was a part of TMZ, now runs Pro Wrestling Sheet. I think he aired some of the shit, and then TMZ, they also
had
are
the
putting
one
it over big time.
of him in. Did you see the one of him in Mexico from TMZ?
Oh my God, he went to Mexico.
Holy shit, that was like this whole thing. It all sort of just the whole bit of how dedicated David Arquette has been to this comeback was just like full circle in all of this. So from you've seen the pictures and you're seeing these highlights of him actually, like, you can tell he's like spent a lot of time training. He's like in shape. He decided to debut in trunks. He never wore trunks in WCW. He had that sick full bodysuit.
Yeah, he was wearing an entire outfit. Like, now he's wearing actually a real wrestler's trunks. Yeah, man, and
yeah, the
throwing
boots.
Hurricane Rana's leg scissors.
Yeah,
looking fucking in shape.
Oh, my favorite bit was the cutter and breaking out that ode to DDP.
The best joke I ever saw, and no disrespect to David, who I have mad respect for, but somebody said, "Man, CM Punk looks horrible."
Oh.
I know.
I think I saw something like that too. But come on, haters. How can anyone in this day and age be like upset in any way of how much David Arquette is just all in on this? But yeah, for the Mexico thing, in addition to the video of like the sort of highlights of the match, which looked awesome and he did a great job, he actually traveled to Mexico, trained in Mexico, and had a match on like some shitty Tijuana indie in front of like 50 people in like an empty building, where he's like working in a mask. So like,
oh yeah, actually I did see that. I apologize. Yeah, he was wearing actually a luchador mask.
Yeah, and so he's just there. He's wrestling in front of people that have no idea they're watching David Arquette wrestling, and he's just fucking kicking ass. He did a sweet Rana. He did a big dive to the outside on top of the dudes from the top rope. Fucking dude's great. And after this match with RJ City, turns out motherfucker suffered like 2 broken or fractured ribs.
Finish the fucking match though, right, brother?
That's the way we do.
Damn right.
Mm-hmm. That's a damn wrestler for you, brother.
Fuck yeah. Honestly, you can't be more impressed by a guy who everyone know he kind of fell into the thing in WCW because of the movie, and the guy followed through. He donated his money to a better cause.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's trying to redeem his name in the eyes of his fans because he legitimately likes wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't help but respect that. And going through the whole deal of going to Mexico, training in Mexico, and then working a match under a hood. Come on,
Yeah.
David Arquette is the fucking man.
Yeah, for like a Hollywood celebrity to be doing that, like what?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it was like didn't even come out until the video was released at a later date. So everyone down there must have been keeping their mouths shut about it, or it's so good.
Had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, and he was over in that video. Like the crowd was like quite happy with this rookie's performance. He got quite a nice little applause from the highlight video that
We
I
have
saw.
no idea who Senior Blanco is over here, but he is fucking great.
So good, so good. Oh man, mad
Amazing.
respect for David Arquette. Keep up the good work, man. I can't wait to see what's next. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned CM Punk with that douchebag comment, but it's almost like a bit of a similarity there with like CM
Yes.
Punk's bucket list thing of doing the MMA and fighting in UFC, and you know maybe it didn't go great, but it's like just the balls to do that and to follow his dream and just all of the training and everything. Similar thing for David Arquette now. Like as a man who's is David Arquette like mid-40s, early 40s, something like that?
For sure, 100%.
Yeah, to just be like, no, you know what? I'm gonna do this wrestling thing. I'm gonna do it right this time. I'm gonna get in shape. I'm gonna train. I'm gonna. It's awesome. So good.
Yeah, and there's the guys locally who are like helping him out, like Santino Brothers and Johnny Yuma, Peter Avalon, and Dave Marquez. Like all these guys can't say enough good things about the guy, and like it's clear that he has love and appreciation for the industry. So it's just beautiful. I mean, I can't imagine a better response to his return to the world of wrestling. And I honestly, I don't know about you, Chris, and for the sake of our podcast, I really hope that this works out to be either an eventual induction into the Hall of Fame or an appearance of Mr. Arquette at a WrestleMania, right? I mean, that seems where it has to go.
Oh, if you want, I don't know. To me, the highlight very much would be David Arquette making a surprise appearance in PWG and like wrestling someone like Chuck Taylor. That's a dream match that I want to see.
So even if we got just there, that is something you love.
Holy shit!
I'm shooting for the fucking moon. I'm shooting for the moon, baby. we need to see David Arquette, Hall of Fame. Our podcast deserves this. It'd be amazing.
Hell,
honestly,
I'd prefer
David
to see David Arquette in a feature contest at WrestleMania rather than most of the other stuff they put out anyway. So fuck it.
Well,
Put
all
him
the
on.
celebrity shit, man. Like the guys who get inducted into the celebrity wing of the WWE Hall of Fame, none of them were WCW champion. It's a shame. It would be a blight on the industry if David Arquette did not make it into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm standing strong on this, my friend. I'm very strong on this point.
Nice. Oh, well, on that topic of David Arquette at WrestleMania, I don't know if you saw it, but someone put together this fantastic, what's like the new WWE video game? They did like a WWE video game version of David Arquette wrestling The Undertaker at WrestleMania in like a Hell in a Cell. And like they did it as like a live stream broadcast deal, and they did like the live commentary over it. And I don't know if it was just like I think it was just two AI dudes, like, just watching the match and seeing how it goes. And fuck me, it is fantastic. David Arquette pulls out some crazy shit. He really brings it to the Undertaker. Undertaker kind of really ups his game with this vigor that David Arquette's bringing. We even get a jumping tombstone. I don't want to spoil the finish, but people need to perhaps check this out. I did do a share of it on the Grown Men Pod Twitter, so it's
beautiful.
It's fantastic. It was really the highlight of my day yesterday, checking that out.
Well, I guess in summation, congratulations, King David.
Yeah, we love you, David. You're listening out there. You're the man.
And the best part about it is all this respect, and you know, he lost the match. I mean, in the long run, but still, we still like him.
Oh, we sure do. I can't wait to
Right.
see what he does next, and I just hope he does something awesome at like next year's WrestleMania weekend or whatever. I just want to see what's next in the story. Ladies and gentlemen, rest assured, David Arquette Watch will continue. David Arquette Watch 2018. Beep, 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 beep.
All right. Well, before we go any further, I just wanted to. I'm not sure if there's actually an audience built around this podcast at all, but I wanted to apologize for our absence, which really comes down to my absence. I personally had some issues I was dealing with. We spoke about mental health and things, issues of that ilk, back when we spoke of the Mauro Ranallo podcast on Showtime, which was the Bipolar Rock and Roller, which tremendous film, great documentary. If you have an opportunity to check it out, I definitely recommend doing so. But I had some shit going on, and I had a bit of a meltdown personally, and I wasn't like at danger of hurting myself or anything, but sometimes when we are people who are mentally unwell sometimes have these experiences, it's not necessarily as dramatic as where we think we're going to kill ourselves every single time. It's just we can't function maybe because we just can't respect or think that anyone respects ourselves, or it goes down to like where we don't even know if we like ourselves personally, or if anybody does, and it's hard to get up and just do a show or be the person you try to be in life, a positive, upbeat person, when that's going on with yourself. So I want to extend my apologies, especially to Chris, my co-host here, who has dealt with me through this. And
No problem, buddy.
I
I'm
can't
here for
guarantee
you.
that it won't happen again. I just can't guarantee it won't happen again, but I'm doing my best to make sure we put out a product that people are entertained by, not just me being morose about my personal issues. So apologies, everyone. And yeah, if you ever do feel like that way, Chris reached out to me. I spoke to other friends, and just reach out and allow yourself to be open and talk to somebody, because honestly, it does help. I'm not like 100% feeling great about myself today, but I'm doing a lot better, and that's all that really matters in the long run.
Yeah, man, for real. I mean, as we discussed on that Moro documentary episode, like it's the most important thing is that the stigma around talking about this stuff is just bullshit. There's nothing wrong with talking about this stuff that you're going through, because most people think they're the only one, and that they're fucked up because they go through this stuff, when that's so completely not true. A lot of us share those kind of feelings. I mean, I know myself, and I've have a lot of those up and down times as well, and it's like in that moment it makes no sense whatsoever, and it's only when you get it away from it you look back and you're like, how did I get to that point? And it doesn't make sense. That's the whole deal. But by talking about it with one another, and just knowing that your other buddies are going through it as well, it feels a lot better just to know that people are there. So I mean, again, similar to what we said on that episode, like, always here to talk about this kind of stuff. And my friend, I just want to say to you that I think it's a really brave, ballsy thing to open up about that kind of stuff on like a podcast like this. A lot of people might think like, oh, it's a fucking dumb wrestling podcast, and it is. It's hashtag dumbness.
Exactly.
But at the same time, if we can sort of relate to people in that way, and do our little bit in removing a little bit of that stigma, I think that's a good thing. But props to you, buddy. I think it definitely takes something to open yourself up in that way.
Honestly, back when I just kept that shit bottled up, I was worse off. So I'm 100% willing to be honest and open, especially because people are out there, they could be relating. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you see the shit's coming from a mile away, and no matter what, you would be. It's like in Austin Powers when that motherfucker is about to get run over by the steamroller. Like, you see it coming so far away. Like, oh my god, I think I have a depressive episode coming, and you can't do anything but lean into it, dude. It really sucks. And honestly, being open and honest about that shit with people who you may not even know they're willing to be open with you and care. Like, fucking hit us up. Me and Chris are we might give you the best answer, but at least we'll give you a voice to fucking express something to us, and we'll give you something to say honestly from our viewpoint. Like, please don't bottle this shit up inside, because I've talked to my girlfriend, my lady friend, with this about everything that's going on with me, and like, it's when you're starting a new relationship, that kind of shit is hard to open up about. But if you're trying to be open and honest with somebody, and if all of a sudden you're randomly quiet and weird on them, they're gonna be like, well, what the fuck is going on? Is it me? If you're not open and honest about what's going on inside. So don't worry about that shit. If anybody cares about you, they want to hear it. So thank you, Chris. And like I said, I can't guarantee I might not freak out again, but I'll do my best to keep this show as consistent as possible.
No worries, buddy. I mean, the idea of this, the show being delayed a week, it's not a big thing. But yeah, thanks a whole bunch for sort of going into that, man. I think that's great. And I don't know, in the future we may talk more about this kind of stuff, but yeah, everybody, that sometimes that the best thing that you can have is just knowing that there's a kind ear listening that's just there to sort of hear you out, and it just feels good to vocalize it, because I know I can go through stuff in my own head, and it just makes no sense, but then when it's vocalized, it somehow, that stuff makes a heck of a lot more sense, even though I've just...
And then your support group grows. Your support group becomes more expansive. Like, you're like, when people understand what's going on with you, they might reach out to give you a heads up before something happens. Like, hey man, just want to check in. Things are going good with you. So yeah, open and honest, man. That's all you can do. And you'll work out better, honestly. Like, no one's going to think you're weak. If anybody does, who
fuck
needs
them.
them?
Yeah, man. I also wanted to hit on that I had a friend, one of my best friends, David, actually reached out to me following our Moro show, and he mentioned how like that the way we sort of talked about that stuff and that opening up that dialogue and like we were saying, removing the stigma, stuff like that, it meant a lot to him. And I was almost like a little taken back when he mentioned to that, in addition to being just shocked that he actually listened to our show. But, just the idea that we're just, it's a fucking dumb, silly wrestling podcast, just a couple buddies shooting the shit. But, to think that someone out there was listening to that, and that, meant something to them, it's just really nice to hear. And yeah, so I wanted to say, thank you, David, for sharing that. And if there's anyone else that likes that kind of thing, or wants to share stuff of their own, we're always here, friends.
For sure. And David, thank you so much. We may not take ourselves so seriously a lot of the times, but we're definitely serious about making sure our friends take themselves to heart, like everything they feel, and care about themselves. And come on, we're goofy, but we definitely can talk to you about something serious. We're not going to blow you off.
Yeah, for real. All right.
Hey, you ready to go into something awesome?
Yeah. What do we got?
All right. I know you shared some tremendous news with me. I just need to follow through. It looks like you're headed to the US of A.
Indeed. Ho ho!
Oh, yo!
Tickets have been purchased. It's a scary thing when you buy like $1,000+ tickets to a show that's like the hardest wrestling ticket basically in the world to get.
One thing to help quell a little bit of your nervousness is the current venue is quite a bit I don't know about quite a bit, but definitely larger than the previous. So the odds are definitely increased, but still slim.
Well, just
But
again, so everyone knows, we're talking about PWG Battle of Los Angeles 2018.
oh,
The
I thought
biggest.
it was my birthday party.
Oh shit!
My birthday party. I'm just joking. Yes, PWG.
Yeah, man. So stoked for this show. But yeah, it's pretty much renowned as the biggest wrestling tournament in American wrestling. Full stop right now. For the longest time,
100%.
it was you could not think of PWG without thinking of the awesome Reseda Sweatbox, the American Legion Hall. Beautiful little venue. And now it has moved on to the Globe in downtown LA. We have had, I think it's basically like doubled the capacity, but at the same time, I think the last show that just happened like a week ago at the Globe, I heard that sold out immediately, just as fast as the fucking Reseda ones did. So
I was trying to be positive, but
yeah.
I know all the evidence is indicating the otherwise, but we're gonna do this, bitch. We're gonna do it.
Positivity, mental positivity.
Yes,
I believe that we can get tickets. And hey, last time, I don't know if I've already said this story, but last time I came over, where we originally met, my friend, when I actually had my tickets ready to go overseas, when I went to buy the tickets online at the time, I lost out completely. I didn't get a single night ticket when they went on sale. And then within the day, I got a ticket to night 3 on the Twitter with a great person that reached out to and was able to hook me up. And then it wasn't until I actually was stepping on board the airplane to come to your wonderful country that I was actually able to secure my final ticket, being night 2 after having got night 1 a little bit earlier than that. So somehow the universe helped me out last time. It all lined up. Hopefully this time isn't quite as stressful, but we will see how we go. I think a lot of other people probably in the same boat. So again, everyone out there, you have our sympathies on this upcoming stressful, what's it going to be, is it Tuesday morning?
Yes, sir. The wrestling gods must smile upon you that day. I think it's Tuesday evening. Or Monday evening. One of the two. Damn you and your fucking Australian time zone.
Fucking confuses me all the time, brother.
I hear you, dude. I hear you. Like I had looked the other day. What the fucking time is it at Chris's house right now? All right, but yeah, the main thing that I want to talk about before we go through the card of PWG is one of the big announcements of someone who's not being included in the tournament any longer is one bro of ours. I think both of you have met Mr. Riddle. He's no longer included in the tournament, which has drawn some, basically everyone wants to assume one thing or the other, and a lot of people have assumed that maybe he's going to be NXTHC or NXT and not the THC anymore for Mr. Matt Riddle.
Oh, that was clever. That was clever. Well done.
I'm a dork, and I like puns. Hey, this guy over here. Sometimes I do it. But anyway, yeah, Mr. Matt Riddle no longer part of the tournament. I believe he was replaced by someone we'll discuss later, but the speculation is he's going to the WWE. Mm-hmm. Initially, it was New Japan, but all but confirmed with WWE. How do you feel about this thing?
Oh, I cannot tell you that I was just extremely sad when I heard the news. In addition to, obviously not being in BOLA, I think one of my favorite things that I got to see in the New Orleans WrestleMania weekend was Bloodsport. And just the incredible, just fresh difference of that show. Obviously, it being Matt Riddle's Bloodsport. I think I'm even more sad at the prospect, as opposed to him no longer being in BOLA, the prospect that we may not get another Bloodsport now. Can we have like can we still have Bloodsport without Matt Riddle? Can they just bring in Jean-Claude Van Damme? Can be Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Bloodsport. Yeah, I mean, fuck, who knows? It's GCW owns the name, I
Yeah.
imagine, so they could do what they want with it. Maybe Riddle shows up, doesn't have to work. He's just a ambassador for the brand. Who knows?
Oh, I hope
But yeah,
so.
Matt Riddle in NXT, it's a can't miss, honestly. And a lot of people speculate about the gentleman because he, as I made the joke earlier, he does partake in a bit of the marijuana. He's a
Mhm.
fan. And
Nothing
if
wrong
it's one
with
of those
that.
things where by no means, but if a guy is looking at a dream job and he needs to pass a piss test, I imagine he'd be more than willing to make that work for him. And a lot of people, I don't know if they know this, but WWE is not necessarily happy about marijuana use, but they don't necessarily fire your ass for that shit.
Well, I mean,
There's
their
a
approach
fine-
has kind of
there's a
really
fine.
changed over the years, hasn't it? Because to start with, like back in the mid 2000s and earlier, there was just the pot tax to where guys after they actually brought in the testing. For a long time there was no testing whatsoever, up until I believe the Benoit stuff happened. They had like a bullshit testing thing before that after Eddie, but still there was like ever since WCW didn't have testing, WWE was like, nah, fuck it. We don't have to test anymore because WCW's not doing it. So you basically had a decade or more of just guys doing all the shit they want. It's basically like the world of Pride Fighting Championships, but in wrestling. But then they brought in the testing, and even after that, they had the stuff that, you're going to, if you pop for, you're going to get in trouble. But then you had the pot, which was a bit more lenient. They just, pot tax, all right, pay me a couple $100 and I'm good to go.
Exactly.
And then they actually started cracking down on that at some point, which I remember hearing and just thinking it was such complete bullshit. I think it might have actually stemmed from when Sabu and RVD got picked up from that incident and the car stop with the cops, and then RVD got stripped of the
Both titles.
Yeah, what a fucking thing that was.
Ugh.
Basically killed the whole ECW relaunch. I mean, like, it was going to die anyway, but I mean, that was
Chris,
terrible.
so really what that was the beginning of an indie movement in the mainstream wrestling, kind of, you know what I mean? Like with RVD, we all know that ECW wasn't indie per se, but it was kind of that voice. So like,
It's like the anti-establishment.
more guys were getting opportunity. Exactly. More guys who weren't the main focus. If that had continued, those guys would have gotten more opportunities, but then RVD and Sabu decided to, I mean, I get it. You want to get high. I mean, it happens. People want to get high.
And RVD's pretty much the ambassador for pot. Like, he's been in all the magazines. It's like,
I heard he had it like in his contract where they automatically deducted that fine. That's been one of those rumors that he always said. Like,
that's great.
it's going to be given. So RVD is like, hey man, I'm not going to try to fuck with you guys or bullshit. I am not a liar. This thing's going to happen if you test me. So deduct it automatically.
Yeah, and then like obviously we had the departure not too long after that of RVD.
Yes.
And he sort of came back for little bits and pieces, but not being there full time. And yeah, I heard that there was a lot stronger than just a pot tax, to where guys would actually get heat or they get their pushes substantially reduced when they got stung a couple times. I remember our boy Matt Seidel got a bit fucked up with his push because of that. I think he was at the synthetic stuff.
But I think his was I think that's specifically why, because he was using synthetic.
But I mean, the fucked up part is he was using the synthetic because of not being able to do the actual natural thing.
I think,
like the
I think they
synthetic
took it
bullshit's
as-
awful. So much worse
It's
than actual
worse
pot.
for you. Yeah, I think they took it as him trying to just avoid a violation of their tests. So when they test and found that, like it's almost like, oh, you're not even like going as far as trying to just use the real shit. You're actually doing your best possibility to get high, but to deceive us. I think I honestly feel that that's something that maybe levied a little bit harder on Matt Seidel. I can't say for sure.
Perhaps. I mean,
but, like,
that did come at the
you know what I
same
mean?
time when there was like that big thing in the news of because I think, didn't people die from that synthetic shit?
Yeah, that shit is fucked. Yeah, that shit's fucked up. Spices. It's like the weed version of bath salt. It's like
Yep.
a bunch of mixed up bullshit.
Friends don't let friends do spice. Listeners, stay away from spice.
Yes, sir. I would rather you do cocaine than spice, and that's
Yeah.
my endorsement.
Heck yeah. A public
But
health
yeah,
endorsement from Grown Man Watch This Shit.
Cocaine over spice. We're not role models. We just say what we say. But yeah, so yeah, Riddle's out. Hopefully,
But yeah, I mean,
big
a
things for
long-winded
him in
thing. I
NXT.
was just basically like, so
Go on.
where is that pot tax now? Is it still a hard line? Is it like, has it been repealed a little bit? Are the NXT contracts different to the WWE contracts where you can get away with a bit more of this stuff? I don't know, because I remember a lot of times.
I can say for certain one thing. In the weekend of New Orleans, I am friends with some people who work for the WWE, and one of the guys who works for the WWE did approach me about procuring him some marijuana. So I imagine either A, it's something where they're aware that if they get popped, there's going to be a fine, but they may not lose their job, because I couldn't imagine anybody who's a professional wrestler losing their job over something as simple as marijuana. It just sounds completely unrealistic to me,
dumb.
unless they get directly popped by a cop. Like that's a different thing altogether. But if it's just thing where you're like hanging out on the weekend and smoking a little pot, I don't see anybody actually taking that risk to lose their job. It just doesn't make sense for the company too. Like, say you're pushing a guy who likes pot, like, and he gets popped. Like, I mean, within the system, you're not going to want to get rid of the guy. You're definitely going to fine him. Like, hey man, you're not going to shit off. But if they get arrested, like RVD and Sabu, it's a big thing altogether.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously been a long time difference between the humanitarian side of WWE and just public image stuff. Like, that's the reason in reality all this stuff happens. They just don't want to have that public black eye.
Sheiky and Duggan got busted marijuana.
Yeah, going back to the 80s.
Yeah, I think it's funny because did you ever always think that was funny that the whole thing with RVD and Sabu, they were kind of enemies, even though they were both managed by Bill Alfonso, and then they get busted with weed, and then Sheiky and Mr. USA, Jim Duggan get busted smoking weed. Like, marijuana brings people together, dude.
Heels and baby faces can get over their shit by smoking a doobie together. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
I think it's clear as day. It's clear as day.
Beautiful.
All right.
But yeah, I hope that they are not as hardline on that shit anymore. The idea that people are having to take fucking pills and prescription meds because they're not actually able to smoke weed when they're sore and banged up, like, makes me so angry. So I hope for our good friend Matt Riddle's sake that he can still light up and have a good time, no matter what his future is. I mean, it's a pretty exciting thing for him. It's sad for a lot of indie fans, but at the same time, hey, if this dude is going to have that next step in his career and he's going to have potentially a really good money-making run, all power to him, as sad as that may make me personally.
For sure. Few people are as money as Matt Riddle. I'm not trying to oversell the guy's ability. It's Kurt Angle levels of grasping what it is to be a professional wrestler from doing something else. It's incredible. Matt Riddle is money, and if he can stay out of his own way, I can't see him not being incredibly successful. And then also back to your point just a moment ago about him no longer being on the scene, the spot that has been left by Matt Riddle is huge. So somebody step up and take that bitch, because then somebody has to step and take your slot. It just makes bigger stars in the long run, and it's a beautiful thing, indie wrestling.
That's how the indie wrestling works, man. But yeah, I mean, to me, Matt Riddle, his biggest thing is that you can look at that guy and you're like, that is exactly the dude that I think he is. That's a real character. That's authentic. That's not some, bullshit storyline, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, fucking, this is your character and take it. It's like that's a real dude, and that's always been his thing, like every part of this run, which has been an awesome run. He's had some great stuff. But I really hope for his sake that he's able to continue and take that real life authentic character. I hope that's the one that we see in NXT, if that's where he goes or whatever, and potentially on upwards and onwards from there. You know, I don't necessarily have a whole lot of belief in the abilities of the guys up north, but you know, hey, I can hold out hope, right?
Damn right, damn right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the outside of Matt Riddle no longer being included in the tournament for BOLA, Battle of Los Angeles for PWG,
Such a great lineup.
is fucking incredible. Like one of my friends, Tim Tracy, he said actually this was the best BOLA lineup ever. And initially, I did balk on that because I've seen some pretty tremendous BOLAs, but when you go back and actually look at the variety and the eclectic lineup that we have here for this year's BOLA, it's hard to argue, really. Like they're bringing back some classic guys like Jody Fleisch, guys who in the United States are rarely seen. What's the German guy or the
I mean, just
Igra
like
Dova-
shout out
what's
to
the-
Jody Fleisch. I remember watching Jody Fleisch
Yes.
in
Oh my
CZW
God.
Best of the Best in like the year 2002, something like that. And him and Johnny Storm like just stole that whole fucking tournament. Like they just lit it up and were amazing. Funny little side note, that also was the show where what's his name? That dude from the Hate Club, flippy dude that was in ROH thereafter. Fuck. Anyway, he did you know, the run up the wall spot where like you do the flip over the guy, like the sort of kung fu movie type of deal. He did that. This is in the classic ECW arena. Went to do the run up over the wall, and I think that the match after Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm. So I mean, like, you know, try to follow that, motherfuckers. He goes to do that run up the wall spot. He actually puts his foot through the plaster of the wall and then just lands on his fucking head. I will always remember that about that show. But yeah, I mean, it's so good. These dudes that just made their mark in early 2000s on the indie scene and it's like, wow, UK scene's fucking awesome. And how much is that full circle now with how hot the UK scene is these days? And these guys just really, really set the benchmark that a lot of these dudes like your Will Ospreys and Marty Skirls and all of those guys are kind of, it lit the whole fire, in my opinion.
Yeah, they set the tone for a lot of the guys in the scene. Yeah, it's Jody and Sema night one.
That'll be a great match.
If you were a fan of early ROH, you're a fan of like Johnny Storm and Jody and all those guys. And apparently, somebody said, I haven't seen it, but Jody's like put on probably like 50 pounds and like super yoked out. Is that the case?
Yeah, I saw Jody. He actually had a bit of a comeback towards the end of last year in Rev Pro, where he was on some of those shows. I remember he had like a really sick match with David Starr, of all people.
Okay.
But yeah, and he motherfucker is jacked.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then the guy I was talking about a second ago that I couldn't think of the name is Dragunov. I think is a Russian guy, and he's taking on our boy Jonah on night one.
Oh.
That's like these.
I think
matchups,
that's night two officially, but yeah, Ilya Dragunov. I made a point to actually
you're right. You're correct.
See how this guy's name is pronounced. I read it the first time. I was like, woo.
What?
Yeah, but that match will be sick. I mean, Dragunov has had like a renowned series of awesome matches with Walter in WXW.
Wasn't he away for some time? Like that? Like I guess he wasn't wrestling for a good period of time or something.
I think so. I watched a bit of a hype video type of thing where he came back on one of the shows and just got this crazy big pop. So yeah, I think so. Yeah. His entrance is amazing as well. Just coming out to this old school like Soviet Union Russian music, and just the molten crowd and dude's just like crazy intense. I'm looking forward to that match a bunch because I think that same dynamic that he has with Walter, I think Jonah is a great opponent that can sort of bring that out of him as well. So I'm really stoked for that one. We've also got Bandito Jr. against T-Hawk. That'll be great. People that don't know too much about...
I'm not crazy with T-Hawk familiar. Like Where are we? Is he where's this gentleman coming out of?
So
What's the
T-Hawk
style?
is
What do we
a
got?
Dragon Gate guy. For a
Okay.
long time, he was like sort of meant to be the ace of Dragon Gate for a good amount of years, and he was always awesome. But he had that sort of thing where the crowd didn't quite accept him in that position. He had an awesome team with Aita for a long time too. I remember in Dragon Gate USA, Aita and T-Hawk were quite a thing for a while. But yeah, T-Hawk is awesome. And he actually is looking to be part of SEMA's new like Hong Kong offshoot of Dragon Gate, which is pretty interesting in and of itself. So I reckon that'll be an awesome high-flying match. I'm looking forward to that one.
One thing is like the best thing about Bola is because they definitely go out of their way to make sure they get a interesting clash of styles matches.
Yes.
I for one appreciate the shit out of that. And one thing that's been sticking out as far as the lineup so far is Darby Allin and our buddy Mr. Jeff Cobb.
Oh, that'll be great. That like big man,
Darby,
little man thing. That crazy little man with a death wish. Like, oh, this will be amazing.
And anybody who's seen Darby perform knows how what big a daredevil he is, and he is a mainstay from up here, and just has generated one of the most interesting characters in professional wrestling. It's unquestionable how it's just this amalgam of like a half dead, half live punk rock skater zombie guy.
As like his entrance where he's like brought out in a body bag and then gets like unzipped and stuff.
It's just so intriguing. Like very few have taken time to develop a character, and also such an unique in-ring style. Darby Allin has all those factors, and I know he's a local Yoko, so I'm kind of sucking his dick, but hey, the guy's fucking tremendous. I hope he goes far. I can't imagine him winning, but I hope he goes far in this tournament.
I mean, I look at that match and it's almost like that's like a Defy presents Bola kind of a match. You know, Jeff Cobb and Darby Allin.
Damn right.
Two guys that go quite a ways back in Defy Wrestling, your awesome hometown promotion up there in Seattle.
CCC.
Yeah,
sure.
So that'll be awesome. Yeah, I'm quite torn on that one as to who I would want to see go forward, because there's so many potential really interesting matches for like Cobb if he goes on from that. I mean, the idea that we could get Cobb and Jonah following that would be just insane.
That's the thing about Bola. They're like, you want one guy to go on, but then you know, like, oh, my buddy Jeff has to lose for that to proceed.
Yeah.
One thing that's standing out is we got Walter and Timothy Thatcher.
Oh man, Ring Kampf explodes. That'll be such a great match.
What the hell?
I'm excited as shit for that one. I just love just that real gritty style that both of those bring forward. And yeah, I can't wait. Night 2 is going to be hot. We also have DJZ against fellow Australian Robbie Eagles. I think that'll be great. You haven't got to see Robbie in person yet, have you?
I have not, no sir.
Oh, you're in for a treat. Robbie, in addition to being an extremely nice guy, is just an awesome wrestler. A lot of people have said he has had the best matches with Will Ospreay of everyone so far in Australia, and Will Ospreay's Australian adventures. DJZ as well, a dude that's had like a real career revival the last couple years after basically having his butthole explode in a match in Tijuana. Did you hear about that?
I did. No, but that's imagine like that is a story of your life. Guy had his butthole explode. That's what somebody has to explain later to another person.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's just leave it at that.
Go on.
Yeah, no, he took like a frog splash, and the dude came down real heavy on him, and somehow I don't know how the human anatomy works, where it takes a frog splash and then your butthole explodes. But yeah, he was like, after that match,
he was clenching something,
right? But yeah, hearing the story is scary as shit. Like just having all this like blood come out his butt, and like, holy shit, I don't think I'm okay. I think I need to go to the hospital.
Everyone should shit before they wrestle, please.
Oh, fuck me.
Outside of cocaine over whatever drug we were talking about earlier, poop before you wrestle. That's a solid bit of advice from the Grown Men Watch This Shit podcast. Holy shit.
Oh.
Asshole exploded. That's fucking insane.
Yep. So, yeah, he was out for like 6 months after that. Like, he almost legitimately died from that.
Okay.
And, you know, being in a Mexican hospital, that like a lot of the stuff that we take for granted is quite a bit different down there. The payment of it, you told this story where it was like, he basically had the hospital and the doctors say, you need this or you're going to die, but before we do the operation, you need to pay us this much money. It's like, what the fuck? And then he's like, how am I going to get this money? And it's a harrowing tale. I think on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast, the one with DJ Z, really goes into it. So if anyone wants to hear the story of the exploding asshole, check that out.
Yeah, getting extorted. I didn't realize that was. I knew he had something go on with his bowels, but I didn't realize what exactly was the scenario. But that's wow, shit. That's pretty incredible. Yeah. Holy crap!
But then he went on to like train actual like proper lucha libre, because he did do a bunch of stuff with AAA. But then he trained with the Lucha Libre school in Chicago. I think it's the company that called Gali. They put on quite a bit of lucha shows in Chicago, bringing out Pentagon Jr., Phoenix, these type of dudes, the Los Traumas. But yeah, so he actually like went all the way to sort of differentiate his style, bring out a bit of something different. And yeah, ever since that, every time I've seen DJ Z work, he's like been just a pleasure to watch. So I think, again, him and Robbie Eagles will really bring out the best in one another. Chris Brooks and Trevor Lee on night 2. That'll be great.
Trevor Lee being the replacement of one Matt Riddle we discussed previously.
That was one thing that took the, little bit of the sadness out of Matt Riddle's, not being there. The fact that we get to see Trevor Lee. I love that guy. He's so good.
He's one of those guys that is... I hate to throw around the term underrated and overrated, because I'm not sure what the scale we're basing all this bullshit on is. But Trevor Lee is definitely a talent who needs more respect. Like, the guy is so damn good. Seeing him in his debut at PWG, where no one knew the fuck the guy he was, and by the time the end of the match was, everyone's like, Trevor Lee. Like, that's not something that most indie wrestling fans are willing to do. Like, for the most part, they're like, you got to prove your shit to us. And clearly the gentleman did. So welcome back to Bola, Mr. Trevor Lee.
Yeah. I think Trevor Lee is like to me, when you think of PWG, Trevor Lee is one of those guys where it's like on, the first like thing that comes to mind to me. You can't have PWG without Trevor Lee. So I'm very happy that we have him back. Carolina Caveman, he's just such a great guy to watch, and also just tremendously really nice guy, from a little chat that I had with him at Bola as well. And against Chris Brooks from the famed CCK tag team with Travis Banks back in the UK. Another guy that we saw do some awesome shit in Rev Pro when we were watching that kind of stuff. He had, I believe, the match, it was Travis Banks and Chris Brooks against Minoru Suzuki and Zack Sabre. And Brooks had that awesome, hilarious chop exchange with Minoru Suzuki. I really rate Chris Brooks, and I think that'll be really good.
I sometimes, like, a lot of those guys who work primarily in England and such, I don't get enough to see them, but thankfully, because you pointed out the Rev Pro opportunities, I have seen some really great Chris Brooks matches and Travis Banks matches. And Chris Brooks, who I believe there was a big video that went out recently of him like declaring that he was going to stay upon the indie market instead of signing somewhere else. You got to commend a guy who, after so many people are taking the extra money, he's decided to, be the guy who's taken this industry or this particular segment of the industry on his back
Yeah.
and becoming the guy. So
I mean, a guy that's just
right on, Mr.
staying
Brooks.
truly independent when all this craziness is going on with WWE and the UK scene. I think that
Yep.
definitely has to be commended. And it's, it's a belief in yourself that you can, you're good enough to where you can flourish outside of that WWE system, so that then when, if you do go in there later on, you've increased your value by doing it on the outside. And I think there are quite a few guys out there that are similarly, thinking along the same lines, and I think it's a great way to be.
It's a strategic move, honestly. It's once the market, a lot of those big guys go and they start focusing on something more confirmed with a contract or a set dates. Those spots get open, like as we spoke earlier with Jeff Cobb going to ROH. I apologize, we didn't talk about that, but these big indie names getting signed to something where they're going to a set promoter, those spots get opened up, and there's just these huge opportunities for Chris or other guys to just step up and take that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when Ricochet left, like so much room opened for people to just step up and take that money. And a lot of the guys, as you can see, have taken time to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Like if we didn't see Ricochet leave, would a dude who is one of my favorite guys to watch in the indies right now, a guy like Shane Strickland, be just the talk of the indie wrestling town that he is right now? To me, he really just stepped up into those Ricochet shoes, and between his stuff in MLW, Defy, his stuff that we've seen him in PWG in the past, Lucha Underground, like dude's everywhere, and I'm so happy for him. So yeah, we do need to see those guys move away to see the next big thing come about.
Hell yeah, that's an amazing point. Strickland is top notch.
And then speaking of Travis Banks that you just mentioned, we got Travis Banks against Shingo Takagi. Shingo for the longest time was like always my favorite thing about Dragon Gate. Shingo is just like so good. I remember when I went to WrestleMania last time, it was in New York years and years ago. I guess not that long ago, maybe 5 years. I'm not good with time. But yeah, I went to a Dragon Gate USA show that had a sweet singles match with Shingo against Akira Tozawa, which was fantastic. But yeah, if people have not been watching Shingo the last couple of years, he's just gotten better and better and better as he has gone on. And the prospect of him and Travis Banks, that is going to be a hard-hitting affair, my friend.
Is he still rocking that sweet mullet? Because Shingo had, as far as I remember, one of your sweeter fucking hairdos.
It was a beautiful mullet. It had like the bits shaved into the sides. It had like the spiked up top, bleach going on. Oh,
fucking beautiful, man.
I hope he still has it. Last time I saw him,
it's one of those things about wrestling is where some things that are so ugly, they in normal society, be like, ugh. In wrestling, you're like, fuck yeah, brother! Look at that haircut.
Yeah, you go into like a sweet dive bar, and the dude sitting next to you has that haircut. And you're just like, I mean, I'm not a judgmental person, but I would judge him.
I'm right there with you, dude. But Shingo walks in, and you're like, oh man, this is a badass motherfucker. Look at that bleached mullet.
There's something to say about Japanese dudes being able to pull off those sick mullets just more than white boys can as well. Like, I don't know what it is, but they just make it work, hey?
Like Evil's haircut. Evil, like, most guys could not rock Evil's hairdo, but Evil looks fucking dope as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of the mullet, you got like your real unique haircuts, the likes of Tenzan. Well, that's actually one of the best mullets going.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even like a Minoru Suzuki with his sweet, like, shaved-in bits and pieces. I don't think many people could pull that off outside of Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah, Rich Swan.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting at the moment. I like it.
Hey, just kidding around. Just kidding.
Nah, Rich Swan makes that shit look good.
He looks good. He looks out of his bullshit.
Nice. All right, so getting back from our departure with Sweet, sick mullets. I mean, the biggest one of all of this. I was gonna save it till last, but fuck it.
Go ahead.
PCO versus Brody King. Fuck me.
Monster.
Hoss fight.
Hoss fight.
Oh,
Or as you introduced me to, Big Lads Wrestling.
big lads wrestling.
Oh man, amazing. PCO, of course, on the show, he had no idea of who he might have been facing, but Brody King is a mainstay here up in the Pacific Northwest at Defy. The guy's tremendous. The guy can move. The guy does lucha. I think we are.
Like, he's blown up this year, hey, and I mean, especially in PWG, he like came in, I think, in one of the shows early this year as like a replacement, and has just been like killing it ever since. Like, I honestly think he's the best big man going on the indies, and I love him. I can't wait to see what's next for Brody King, and I think he's really earning his way up into that that top tier spot in PWG, one match at a time. So I can't think of a better person to be facing PCO. But again, like, I'm so torn as to, you know, who wins and goes on in the tournament. It's so tough.
Yeah, that's really how it lays out with most of the BOLA tournament each year. Like, well, fuck, I really honestly could go with most guys unless it's like a new guy, like his first year. But for the most part, you're like, who am I going to choose in this one? And Brody King and PCO, it's definitely hard to let's lay it out, man. Who are you going with?
Well, I would be a terrible person if I did not just completely go with my boy Pierre-Carl Ouellette. Like, come on, we had him on the show. He's such a nice guy. I personally want to see PCO win this whole motherfucker.
Okay, well, for this, I was going to go that way, but for the sake of fun, I'm going with Brody King, Defy.
Don't tell Carl.
Wrestling. I watch my nips. They're going to get electrocuted.
Yeah, Destro will come out here.
Dude, by the way, let's talk a little about that show. How fun and interesting was that? Like, when he started to go into all the stuff about him and Destro, you're like, man, like, this is so deeply involved and interesting and
a lot of
so
stuff that I had
intriguing.
no idea about. Hey, like, you watch those videos and you think, like, on a surface level, Destro's just some dude that he's wrangled in to be on these videos.
Torturing him.
Yeah, but then you hear, like, the whole backstory of how he's, like, this renowned strongman and how it's like it was a big thing for Carl to actually get Destro on board to train him to do a lot of these strongman feats, like going from watching that Bret Hart interview thing where he was saying about the match that he had with Carl back in WWF in the mid-90s, and how Destro was like, no, because of how shit that character was at the time, you know, the Pierre Lafitte, the pirate, and how much Destro could see what Carl needed to be, kind of thing, and helped create this amazing monster, like we said, you know, the Terminator, Frankenstein, whatever you will, but it's just such a awesome, unique thing, and I think it's that kind of eclectic stuff to where we've got a guy like that in BOLA that is the magic of this year's lineup.
100%. Like, a couple years back, we had Liger, who just threw this interesting wrinkle into the whole thing. Like, you're just, okay, Jushin Thunder Liger's in BOLA. Wow. So this is I think a step up from that, even, because as amazing as PCO has had this year, him included in the BOLA tournament is just, I mean, I know he's kind of doing the freak show gimmick. It's like a freak show match, and it's fucking exceptional. I am so excited to see how far it goes. Like, you know, I'm turning around. As much as I wanted to do for just the challenge saying Brody King is going to win, I'm going PCO, bitch. I'm siding with you, buddy.
Awesome. Yes, we need this. We need this great, happy comeback story of 2018 to continue.
Damn right.
Awesome. All right, before we go to the next one, I'm going to have a quick wee. I'll be right back. I don't have a wine bottle here to pee in this time. I'm sorry. One moment, guys.
All right. I don't know if I'm supposed to fill airtime here or not. Chris is urinating. I hear in Australia the toilets go the opposite way. We've had that confirmed on The Simpsons. This is the second episode reference of that particular Simpsons episode. Yeah, I do get redundant with my references. Cheers, Wassus. I think I can hear Chris peeing. Hang on, let's stop and listen. I was mistaken. I cannot hear him urinating. I really hope he doesn't leave this in. I'm going to list some DVDs or VHS videos I have in front of me for the sake of doing so. I have Clerks, Biodome, Elvis Aloha from Hawaii, Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. I have Con Air. I have a Limp Bizkit unauthorized video. I'm sure they authorized it. They're just trying to be rebellious there. Jerry Springer. I have a Orgasmo VHS tape. And then Say Anything and Better Off Dead, which are both 80s classics. I hope you enjoy. Are you back?
I'm back. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's great.
I got bored. I started listening to the VHS tapes in front of me.
Amazing. Look at that, filling up that dead air. And you know, people, we're going to leave this in because while other shows
that was one of
would be...
That was one of the statements. I wonder if he's going to leave this in.
Other shows have professionalism. We bring the dumbness and we bring the realness of P-Breaks.
Yes. I hope everyone enjoys my VHS selection that I have shared with you today.
I'll have to listen back to that. That's great. All right, so back to it, guys.
Go on.
We're really taking a bit longer on these because we talk, we ramble. That's what happens here. But anyway, Joey Janela and David Starr. I think that'll be an awesome match. Both two just like fucking characters. I think that'll be really, really fun.
Joey's one of those guys that, as we spoke of a moment ago, who, due to some signings of some bigger stars, has stepped up and filled those slots. And Joey Janela over the last year, and even the last 6 months, has just elevated his star power with Joey Janela Spring Break and Tournament of Death, and it's just, who doesn't love Joey Janela at this point, really?
Oh man!
Also,
did you see his sick thing on Instagram recently?
There's a bunch of sick things. Which one are we speaking of?
So the one that I thought was the most appropriate when you said about all these guys leaving and Joey being left. He posted this sweet meme of the Watchmen meme of the blue dude sitting up on Mars.
Yes.
He's basically
Dr.
like
Manhattan.
Yeah, Dr. Manhattan. He's basically comped his face in on Dr. Manhattan, and in that bit where he's like sitting all contemplatively up on Mars, I think, and it's like, where'd everybody go?
Yes. That was very, very good. Yeah, man, Bola is set up to be an incredible tournament this year. The non-tournament matches with some tag team stuff also set up to be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm super excited, man. I'm sure we'll talk about it more because I think we both aim to go there. So, yeah, Bola 2018. Incredible. Can't wait.
Yeah, and I wanted to shout out the night one non-tournament match of Walter and Timothy Thatcher, Ring Kampf, against Ilja Dragunov and Shingo Takagi. Oh my gosh. There is going to be some pain going on in that match, and I really want to see it.
That's another thing about Bola. It's like they set up these matches where like, well, I didn't know I needed to see that match. But now that I know it's a possibility, I need to see that match.
Fuck yeah.
Night one is one of those nights a lot of people who are PWG fans feel they can miss sometimes because the real good stuff tends to happen on night 2 and 3. But shit, they've kind of made night one almost can't miss as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wanted especially, the final two matches we haven't mentioned from it yet, Ray Horrors and Adam Brooks. You know how much I love me some Brooksy. That match is going to be dope. And then finally, Flamita and Puma King. And Puma King's really interesting because he was for the longest time a severely underrated CMLL dude. Every one of those Arena Mexico shows that you watch on Friday nights, he's always there in like the second or third match, always killing it, always doing awesome stuff. He's actually the son of Felino, who I believe was one of those dudes in WCW.
Selena?
Felino.
I'm just kidding.
No. But yeah, so he's actually just recently announced that he's leaving CMLL to depart for like this US indie journey, and basically he's making the jump from like being in the one of the biggest companies in the world, honestly, in the form of CMLL, to go out on his own and really try to up his stock before potentially coming back to Mexico as a big star, similar to the likes of Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix. Like, I think that's awesome.
You gotta respect that.
Yeah, I think he's
Fucking
going to
banking on
surprise a
himself,
lot of
man.
people, and he's got a lot of like, this has got to be his coming out party, right? Like, all the pressure that you must have for this. Like, if you're going to have a big indie run, PWG is where it really happens.
Without question, man. Bandito is one of those guys who has been so exceptional in PWG, and the clips that people see, maybe they didn't hear about him initially and now are going back to watch some other stuff, know how tremendous he is. So pairing him up with somebody like Puma King, I mean, it's going to be amazing. I mean, is that not questionable? Like, going to be maybe the Night Stealer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope we get that match. I mean, initially it's Bandito Jr. against T-Hawk, and then we got Flamita against
yeah, you're
Puma
right.
King.
I apologize. I'm jumping ahead.
Oh, you know the
Shit.
booking sheet? Shit, spoilers.
I was talking about my ass in a hopeful match that I wanted to see, and I apologize. I forgot it wasn't actually set in stone.
I hope that we get to see that as well. That'd be great. But yeah, I mean, I think Flamita as an opponent for Puma King will be just as awesome, because similar. I see Bandito Jr. and Flamita as two guys that have just, they are what Puma King wants to do in terms of being the luchador in PWG, because they've just had an awesome run so far there.
I think up here in Defy we get Flamita and Ray Horace and Bandito against Mustache Mountain and somebody else.
Such
I think
a unique match. I love it.
Yeah, it's Defy has further. Jumping ahead a little bit, but Defy with their United show, combining a lot of the Defy talent with the Progress talent, has really generated one of the more interesting shows of the year, I'd have to say. Like, it's incredible. And then one of the matches at that show that a lot of people are jealous of is Walter versus one Jimmy Havoc. I don't imagine a lot of blood in that one, because up here we don't, the Athletic Commission doesn't smile on that too much. But yeah, should be fucking incredible.
Yeah, I just love to see Walter kill people, and Jimmy Havoc is a dude that seems to have no problem in getting killed. So
Being killed, yeah,
damn.
you're right.
But similar to that, actually, and this will be something for our next episode. The next Crash show in Tijuana is going to be similar, because all of those dudes from Progress are going to be over, and before they get to their official Progress USA shows, a lot of them are all going down for that Crash show in Tijuana. So Mustache Mountain, Travis Banks, Chris Brooks, like all these kind of guys are actually going to be in the Crash working these luchadors. So and
Insane.
Our man John is actually going to be there for that one as well. So he's volunteered to do another little call in to let us know how it goes.
All right, I'll think about it. Yeah, I'm just kidding. John's awesome. He's a great guy.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, wow, Progress has definitely set the U.S. on fire with this tour. Like, all the dates, I have never seen a tour excite wrestling fans as much as this Progress tour. So I am when I heard that Seattle was chosen as one of the locations, I damn near shit myself. And not like hypothetically, like literally, because wrestling up here has always been considered kind of a black hole scenario. Like, nothing good happens up here. But then Defy started after 3-2-1 kind of set the groundwork, and since then we've been very, very lucky. So very, very excited about this.
Yeah.
And I hope Chris just, maybe makes another trip over here, another $1,000.
Yeah, man, I would love to. It's still on my list to make it to Defy after almost being able to make it to a show on my last trip over. But I mean, it didn't end up happening. But then we ended up going out for beers, and that was even better.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
Shout out to Zach.
Yo, Zach. That was really fun. He was such a fucking nice guy.
Dude, my buddy Zaza is the best because, especially, he appreciates wrestling. He's not necessarily a fan, but his viewpoint is exceptionally awesome and funny. Like the other day, we're sitting here watching, and he's like, Bill Watts, because I had him watch the Brody documentary, which we were supposed to discuss but never got to. We had him watch that with me, and he's like, Bill Watts and Eric Stonestreet from a show Modern Family look identical. And
yes,
it's something I never ever noticed before. But as soon as I saw it, I'm like, holy shit, Zach, you couldn't be more accurate. Like,
how scary is it?
Non-wrestling eye. It was so straight, dude.
He could definitely play him in a movie.
Oh, so weird.
Yeah.
And we're tangenting as fuck, man. Tangents. That's what the show is all about.
Yeah, beautiful. Now we just organically move on into... we were originally going to talk this past week about Brody, that awesome Brody documentary. It was actually the 30-year anniversary of Brody's very sad passing. And it's almost been better in us having the week after it, because there's been a lot of interesting stuff that's come out in terms of like podcasts and different people talking about it and things like that. To where I was telling you, man, about how much I just got into like a rabbit hole. After I watched that amazing High Spots Bruiser Brody documentary, pretty much all I was thinking about for that next week was just about Bruiser Brody. I watched like so many amazing Bruiser Brody matches. Watched that 60-minute draw that he had with Ric Flair in the Checker Dome in St. Louis. Amazing match. People need to check that out. That was also on High Spots, actually, in their awesome St. Louis Classics collection. I watched a bunch of his awesome stuff from Japan, his awesome tag team with Jimmy Snuka and the feud that they had against Terry and Dory Funk Jr. And then when Stan Hansen jumps over from New Japan and makes his big debut in All Japan, and then it becomes the crazy formidable Stan Hansen Bruiser Brody tag team. It's just such an interesting topic, because it's like, from this documentary, it's like there's two things. There's the career of Bruiser Brody, which is its own. It's such a good thing. People need to talk more about his career, because it's such an interesting journey. But then there's the discussion of the death of Bruiser Brody, which a lot of the time it feels like that's all people talk about. If people talk about Brody, they're only talking about Puerto Rico, and they're only talking about Jose Gonzalez. So, I mean, I definitely, I was actually really excited to have this chat to sort of get to talk about it. It feels like all that's been running through my head for the past week. I mean, what were your thoughts just starting out on the Bruiser Brody documentary, the High Spots one?
My initial thought was both the amazingness of selecting his wife to be the narrator, and also how not necessarily great she was as a narrator. Like, it almost made it awesome that she wasn't like a natural narrator for a story. It was just a woman telling the story of her husband. Yeah, just telling the story of her husband that was viewed by most people not as a normal man, more as an icon, as something, we all revel in, like the legend of Bruiser Brody, you know what I mean? And how he was more than that to her, and how she wanted to let everyone know all these facets of Frank as a human being. And like, initially it threw me off guard, but then like, you're like, it's so raw and real and more emotional when you hear it coming from her.
Yeah, definitely.
And I found that amazing. And when the documentary first started off, like, they weren't like necessarily saying who the people were that were talking. And I was watching it with my buddy Zaza, and he's like, who are these people? I'm like, some of these people I can name off the top of my head, but some of them, like, I needed that subtitles, which it eventually came in, but
it's kind of weird,
wasn't it? Threw me off, and it took a little bit.
But one big take from me, like similar to what you're saying there, is like the content of it and the interviews and Barbara's stuff was so great, and it like gave so much heart, and like there were some moments in this documentary that like are really fucking just punch you in the belly. But it's like they so far outshine, if you're looking at it just from like an actual production standpoint, this is not like a slick ESPN 30 for 30 or like HBO documentary. This is, I don't think High Spots have those capabilities. This is just some dudes jamming together a bunch of awesome interviews that they got over the years, I guess, as well as some new stuff that they recorded into what ended up being like a really good documentary. But you do have to sort of make your way through some production stuff that maybe could have been done better.
One of my favorite moments was Barbara discussing Frank and her dropping him off at the airport, and how as soon as he broke the line of the sidewalk into the actual building itself, he then put on that air of, Bruiser Brody, not Frank British, and just walked through the airport with his confidence and star power, and how he became totally a different person literally as soon as he broke that plane.
It's such a contrast,
I just find that
isn't
so
it?
interesting. Yeah.
Like, I mean, everything that I've heard about Frank, he's actually like a really super intelligent guy. It was really interesting in the documentary. Before he started his wrestling career, he was actually a sports journalist for like 3 years, and did really well. Just a really smart, educated guy. That is so polar opposite of what people perceive of this crazy out of control monster / dude that doesn't go along with promoters and hijacks all this stuff and whatever. I actually listened to an amazing couple of episodes. There's a great podcast put on by a dude by the name of Fumi Saito. He was a Japanese reporter who actually went back in the day when Brody would come over to Japan. He interviewed him quite a few times, and they had like a real rapport. And on one of the, after his death, when Barbara went over, they actually met Fumi and Barbara. And she was like really sort of taken back of how nice, and just the whole thing of, how much love the Japanese people had for Brody. But yeah, they on the, what's it called? The Pacific, we'll get the name of this. The Pacific Rim Pro Wrestling Podcast. On this episode, he actually had Barbara on, and it was the first time that they spoke since like 1988 when she was over for Bruiser Brody's memorial. So you actually got to hear this real conversation between them, and one of the biggest things that came out of it, to your point, was that contrast, that complete contrast between when you're talking to Frank, when he had his hair all pulled back and just a really smart, earnest guy. In Japan, they actually called him the intelligent monster because of that point. And yeah, how he just will turn from that mode into worker Brody mode in the split second. And yeah, that was a big thing that came out of that. But it's such an interesting thing. Like you're thinking of him as this wild man character, and then like his home. When he's at home, like the person that he is, and how important, Barbara and his son Jeff were to him, to the point where he would be, turning down shows or no showing shows because he said that he wasn't able to go because it's Jeff's birthday or something like that. Like no wrestlers would do that back in the day, except Brody did because he thought, family is so much more important to him than wrestling.
And it should be. That's one of those things that a lot of the guys who were making big money back in those days maybe had trouble understanding, and maybe they've had detrimental relationships with their family members because of that. So it was awesome that you could clearly see that as far as the story was going and what Barbara was saying, that Frank was ready to either come to the WWF and do a run with Hogan and then close up shop, or was happy doing some regular dates on independent shows every once in a while, because as the documentary has shown, Frank was one of the big things that actually helped generate the independent scene for wrestling as we know it. The whole thing about flying in a big star to run the show and then having your main guys work underneath, and that's basically how most of places operate outside of your super indies like PWG and such. So yeah, it's incredible to see, based off of what our show is about, how Frank was such a big part of generating what would become the independent wrestling scene.
Yeah, I mean, that was the original reason why I wanted to cover this on this show specifically, was because in a lot of ways, Brody was like the first real independent wrestler. Like, he started that. He was so proud to be independent and not be work for a company where his boss can tell him exactly, all right, you have to be here, you have to be there. I don't care if it's your son's birthday, you're going to be here. Brody was like so independent when it came to promoters, to where he would say, no, I'm not going to be there because I've got this. Or like, and so many times, there was another interview actually on that podcast with Fumi where he actually played an actual interview that he had with Brody from like 1985, I believe it was. Like, just this whole interview that they had in this fancy hotel lobby. And you're just getting all this like real frank discussion. Like, it's so crazy to hear like a shoot interview from that long ago. But yeah, one of the biggest things that came out of it was how much Brody was just really proud to be independent. The other thing, it's so sad.
He's an independent wrestler. He don't need no man.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so sad in hindsight, with everything that went down, the way it went down with his passing, the fact that the biggest thing that he had from this interview that was like, that really stayed with me, was how much he's like, you have these guys that are just like, wrestling is everything for them. The business is everything for them, and their families suffer and whatever. To me, family is number one, and my business is second to my family and me as a man. I do what I need to in the business for my family, and that might mean holding up a promoter. That might mean if a promoter promised him a certain amount of money, and then, as promoters tend to do, they might be shorting him a little bit on the house, as was pretty standard back in those days. He would take that really personally, and he would actually get back at the guy, potentially at a later date by agreeing to a show and then just no-showing it as a fuck you. I remember you stiffed me that couple $100 on a prior show.
Or whooping that guy's ass.
Yeah, or actually whooping that guy's ass. And a lot of people would be like, no, Brody was an unprofessional piece of shit for doing that kind of stuff. But from everything that I've heard, guys are just like, no, he just had so much conviction when it came to what he felt that he was owed, when it came to what, the money that he was earning for his family, because that was so important to him. And if he felt like he was wronged, because I think a big thing, and this sort of goes back to Stan Hansen, who was like probably Brody's best friend and very similar to Brody in a lot of ways. But yeah, Stan, as much as he was similar in terms of not trusting promoters, he'd say that Brody had so much more of a distrust for promoters than even he did.
Yeah, and he also seemed like such a voice for the boys, which a lot of guys they say they are, and maybe a part of it is selfish in the long run because they want to protect their own money. But it seemed like clear that Frank was hoping that everyone would end up getting their fair shake in the long run, which at the same time makes his death so tragic because so many people who were the boys at the time turned their back, both literally and figuratively, at the time of when he needed his boys or his brothers the most. And it's just so sad. And hearing Tony Atlas break down everything, and
oh man,
insane that
Tony was amazing in this.
The voice of reason.
Tony was the highlight. It's insane
that Tony had to be the guy. Like, it's just knowing the history of him on camera and how crazy he is sometimes, the fact that he was the one who had to lay this story home just made it like hit so much heavier. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That it was so hard because, I mean, Bobby Heenan actually had a bit in the documentary where he wasn't very kind to Brody at all.
Yeah.
He basically said, because there were some famous stories of territories that Brody purposefully killed the territory. Be it if he's been paid by someone else, or if he felt like that promoter wronged him and this was his way of getting back at him or something like that. And Bobby was saying about how, by you doing that to the promoter, you're not thinking about the rest of the boys on the card. And there were a lot of instances where Brody would do what he would do, and it was the right thing for him and the right thing for his family and his convictions. But, there were other wrestlers that would get caught in the crossfire. So it's a really complicated type of thing. And I think a lot of people paint him with the brush of just being selfish, wouldn't do jobs for people, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, in terms of where he was and like his commitments and responsibilities to Japan, where he couldn't necessarily lose because if he's been paid so much money by Giant Baba and All Japan, like they don't want him doing a job for some dude in Minnesota. So it's tricky.
No, agreed. Some of the when you're watching the documentary, there's always sometimes the editor likes to add in, without being intentionally so, a little bit of a joke. I don't know if you caught this, but during the thing, after they discussed Brody's passing, and Kevin Sullivan was on video or on film saying, "I don't think any American should have gone back to Puerto Rico after that." And the next clip they showed after that was Buddy Landell saying, "I went back several times."
Yeah. I mean, because
like
it is pretty funny the way it was just right
Buddy's dead, and they bust him in the balls. Like everyone knows Buddy's track record of being, guy's trying to make some money. He's working his thing. He's getting his shit in, and then they just make this guy. Yeah, nobody should go back to Puerto Rico. I went back several times.
But I mean, that was a tricky thing because I actually on
make money.
Sorry.
I said people need to make money.
Yeah,
so
that's it. People need to feed their family. On Jericho's podcast that Meltzer was on, where they were just talking about Brody this past week, that was a big thing that they went into. And Meltzer said about how so many guys just had heat amongst the other boys because they'd worked Puerto Rico. But it's like, if your work in the other territories isn't feeding your family, and then you have this offer where you can make money and put food on the table of your family, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to hold this grudge and have your family starve?
Yeah, I get it. Like sometimes personal scruples definitely rests on whether or not your family's eating or not.
Yeah, for real. I mean, that's what matters at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, getting to the heart of the matter and the murder that happened in Puerto Rico. I mean, if people don't know, Brody's life came to an end at like the age of 42, I think, in 1988 in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. The promotion at the time in Puerto Rico was so huge, so hot, on such a great record run, and Brody was a huge part of that. Carlos Colon was the promoter. Victor Javica was another big guy in the ownership of the promotion, and Invader One, Jose Gonzalez, was the booker down there. And Brody, honestly, was probably their biggest star. So then you go from that to, the news coming out that shocked the world that Brody was stabbed to death in a locker room in Puerto Rico by Invader One, Jose and Gonzalez, the booker. And
which was originally muddied by reports that Brody was in fact not really, but was reported attacked by a fan. And was reported not only within the boys, but to the media as well.
Yeah, and even after, it was pretty clear from a lot of different accounts that it was Jose. This promotion had a lot of stroke with the government, things like that, and the court case you know, it was funny on that interview with Jericho. Dave Meltzer was saying he read his reports going up to the trial, and he was just saying it's scary how matter-of-factly I was just reporting, yep, so he's not going to be found guilty. He's going to get off. This is what happens. This is just the deal, guys. And that's exactly what happened. Jose got off. And yeah, that's really like the whole reason that we're saying about all these wrestlers who swore never to go back to Puerto Rico. A lot of people said the case itself was like a joke, like some of the key witnesses, like Dutch Mantell and Tony Atlas himself, who actually had the balls. They were going to testify. A lot of the workers just didn't. They thought it would be too dangerous for them to go down there because there were, you know, reportedly threats that if you come down here to testify, bad things are going to happen to you. But yeah, they were going to, but then they didn't receive their notice to appear as part of the case until after it was already finished. So, like, really frustrating, and it sort of gets to a bigger thing, which was like the part that stayed with me when I was talking about this stuff or thinking about this stuff.
Dog's doing it running in the podcast.
Yeah, right. Jerk dogs. We won't hear them too much, but yeah, like the biggest,
they're good. You're good.
The biggest thing was like for the longest time, and I think it's the same for a lot of wrestling fans. They're just angry about this whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're just angry at this whole scene. It's almost like people, when they think of Puerto Rican wrestling, it just has this like black eye on it because of this like bad taste it left in everybody's mouth, and how just fucking angry they are that like this man's life was taken from him.
Some of that heat rolled over to like Carlito, Epico, and Primo. Like people like didn't want to give the Colon family and the Colon kids or their progeny like a shot because of Carlos basically being a party to the murder of Bruiser Brody.
Yeah, being an accomplice.
It's kind of hard to coalesce that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I mean,
another
thing is it's like when you think about this, and from a lot of stuff that I've heard of Carlos having a big part in the cover up and the court case going the way it did, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame right now.
Yeah.
You know? Interesting. But yeah, personally, like for the longest time, I was like so angry about this and just thought, you know, this, you know, Jose Gonzalez, just such a piece of shit and rah, rah, rah. But then it's like, I don't know, you get past that. And then like the biggest question to me was like, why? Why would Invader do this? You know, what's his side of this? You don't just like stab your biggest draw to death in a locker room of all places. Like, could you think of a fucking worse place where you could commit a murder if it was premeditated? Like, what a fucking dumb idiot. But then...
Well, he did have only Tony Atlas as a witness, so, I mean...
Yeah.
Just joking.
Well, there's a lot of different...
That was a terrible joke. Sorry.
I didn't even catch that. Ugh.
I was saying, Tony, not the most reliable. He was probably getting stepped on.
Yeah.
At the time.
But, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different... people have talked about it afterwards. You know, people like Dutch Mantell, obviously Tony had such a vivid recollection of it that was just heart-wrenching in the documentary itself. But another dude, Eric Embry, who was a dude that was actually part of the Puerto Rican office after it went down. A long-time worker, contemporary of like Steve Austin, stuff like that, back in the late 80s territory days. And Memphis and things like that. But yeah, Eric Embry had like some super interesting stuff to say about it on Austin's podcast. This came out like last year, I want to say, something around there, where he mentioned that I believe Victor Jovica, that other dude high up in the office, had told him in person that it cost him and Carlos $178,000 to get Gonzalez off. Which is like scary when you actually hear it. Like that's him relaying it from the guy that was involved in it. And again, from hearing about Eric, like he doesn't, I mean, you know, you never know the truth or whatever, rumor, but he comes across as like a real credible dude. But then he had some really interesting stuff to say about Jose's side of it that I'd never heard before. You just sort of like think of this guy as this evil monster, and he just did what he did because he's evil. But that doesn't make sense. I mean, have you heard the story about his daughter?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, she like
I have not.
she in like either the days or weeks before the murder, Jose's daughter drowned to death in their swimming pool. So, and she was like 3 or 4, something like that. So it's
I
like,
think they alluded to something about his personal life going on in the documentary. So yeah,
yeah,
I don't think they actually spoke of what exactly occurred.
yeah. I know. Ric Flair mentioned it in his book as well. But yeah, so there's that. So dude's like not in a good place like that. The other thing Eric Embry mentioned was that for the longest time, like Bruiser would just bully the shit and abuse him like nonstop. So like they'd have matches and Brody would just stiff him all through the matches, and with Jose being the booker, Brody would sort of like allegedly abuse him in front of the boys and like make it obvious that he doesn't have any respect for him and things like that. So you've got a guy that's maybe not in the best mental health area of his life. Got a guy that's been like bullying and abusing him on an ongoing way, disrespecting him in front of the boys for a long time. And then the worst part that Eric said was like that Victor Javica and Carlos would like egg him on. It's like, you're going to take that? Don't take that. You have to do something about this. Don't think they thought he was actually going to fucking kill him.
Murder, yeah.
But still, it's like, it's fucked up. There are also rumors that Brody loaned the Puerto Rican office like 50 grand. Or there was like some sort of issues with taxes and Brody potentially owning or buying part of the territory. Or that Brody was going to start working on some of the other islands down there in the Caribbean area. Again, you never know, but it's like little bits and pieces where it starts to make a little bit more sense why there would be a grudge. But the biggest part is like when I heard this, it was like sort of it made a whole lot more sense to me than a dude just going to murder him in a locker room. Some people have had the idea that perhaps he only intended to like scare Brody and let him know he's not going to be taking his shit anymore with the knife. And then you can imagine how Brody would have probably reacted to that.
Yeah, fuck you and your knife.
Yeah.
I'll fuck you up. I'm Bruiser Brody.
And then things escalating from there, and then potentially things played out exactly the way that that we heard the rest of the story. But I mean, I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. There's no right or wrong with this stuff, but it's just such a fucked up thing, hey.
Yeah, Zach. When I started watching it with Zach, or as I affectionately call him, Zaza, he's like, at first he's like, so what happened? Like, as the documentary is beginning, like, well, Zach, I hate to tell you, but these guys went through all the time of generating this documentary to tell you exactly what occurred. So I'd feel I'd be spoiling it if I told you what happened to this gentleman right now at the beginning of this. He's like, fair point, fair point.
Indeed.
But yeah, a tremendous documentary. If you have not seen it yet, it may tug on your heartstrings if you're one of those sensitive types that feel for other people. Some of us can't do that, but I do. But amazing, tremendous, definitely worth the sit down and watch. And back to Barbara, like, what a woman! Like, I don't think I've heard of someone who speaks more affectionately for their partner than Barbara Goodis.
Especially in the wrestling business, hey. Like, because that's the thing. Most of these people on the road are like, wrestlers are wrestlers. Guys cheat on their wife. Guys do whatever. They're not home most of the time. But from everything that I've heard, like the Brody that people hear about and the legends and that, like in that like domestic sort of situation, sounds like just such a nice guy that really legitimately cared about his family, and that was the most important thing to him. And lastly, like in that interview with Fumi Saito that I was talking about, a thing that he said that really like just fucking got my heartstrings. He was like such a realist. He was like, one of the quotes was like, I'm aware that I'll be forgotten, He said, like, people will forget you, especially in entertainment and sports, and I'll never give my whole life to the business. Like,
Yeah.
and
Unfortunately, that didn't shake out that way, Frank.
yeah, but I mean, to the opposite side of it, like, he was so convinced in that interview in 1985 that people would forget him, next big things come along, whatever. But people are still talking about Bruiser Brody and the legacy of Bruiser Brody today.
Yes, sir.
I think despite not having that big WWF run that a lot of people had, or even having like a big run in Crockett or something like that, Brody was always like the outlaw, and he's almost bigger in memory than all those guys. So yeah, I mean, I recommend, guys, check out some Bruiser Brody matches. They're so great. Dude had like such a contribution to wrestling, and yeah, check out this bloody documentary. It was amazing.
I concur, my friend.
Yeah, and hey, if you like that, I heard some rumblings that following the success of the Ric Flair ESPN 30 for 30, they're doing some other wrestling stories, and Bruiser Brody may be the topic of one of them coming up. So, something like that could blow this whole thing up. In terms of like maybe, I don't know, trial, retrial, stuff like that. But I mean, that's the step towards getting people talking about it outside of just wrestling fans.
Wow, how amazing would that be?
Yeah, pretty nuts.
Yeah, hopefully it won't shake out like, some retrials of some individuals who technically die before they get their day in court really shaken out.
I don't know.
If you know who I mean.
I believe I do. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just, the side, hearing Jose's side, it's like, well, in no way does it justify what he did, but you can understand it maybe, and you could maybe understand why his friends would have tried to help him out and prevent him from potentially getting the death penalty. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard.
No, that's good. It's a very good point. Like, I doubt, especially in such a close knit unit as wrestling, everyone's gonna all of a sudden turn their back on you. You know what I mean? It's very rare in the world of wrestling.
Yeah, sure is.
Sometimes they like even say, "Hey, don't get caught speaking out loud, brother." You can say what you want, like for a certain reinstated wrestler.
Oh man, look, the Hogan stuff. Gosh.
Oh, we don't need to get
No,
into
we
that.
don't.
Yeah.
That's not our podcast.
Yeah.
We'll let other people complain
sir.
about that. Whatever.
For sure.
Anyway, we've been going for
All
a
right,
while.
buddy.
I feel like we're
Yeah.
about ready to wrap this baby up.
In the amount of time we were off, I think it's only fair that we give the just due of audio to our good and faithful listener, one Courtney.
I'm sure she'll really appreciate this wonderful gift
Yeah.
that we're giving her in a near 2-hour podcast.
Extra content is specifically for her.
Just for you, Courtney.
See you soon, my lady.
Yeah, you guys will be able to finally meet in person. Nice.
Yeah. She busts my balls in person instead of via internet.
You'll find that she does just as good a job as busting your balls in person as she does over Facebook.
I expect no less. All right, buddy. Well, do your things. Put over the podcast.
Put over the things. All right. So, as always, we are very grateful to the Social Suplex Wrestling Podcast Network for giving us the platform to do this. We have a bunch of other sweet podcasts on there that you can always check out, in addition to their main website at socialsuplex.com. We've also got the One Nation Radio over there, hosted by Rich Larder. We've got Keeping It Strong Style, hosted by Jeremy and Josh Smith, other Jeremy. We've got the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, Outsiders Edge, hosted by Rance and Carl, and the Wrestling Wash with Bathtub Caleb Conwin. That's the Social Suplex Wrestling Network.
Beautiful.
Outside of that, again, you can always check us out on the Twitter at Grown Men Pod. You can check myself out on the Twitter as well as the Instagram, where you can find all my wacky art shenanigans. at Chris Things. How about you, my friend?
You can find me both on Instagram and Twitter at Jaims Vanderbeek, spelling it a little unusual. It's Jaims and Vanderbeek, spelled phonetically. So get after me. Follow me if you like memes or stupid jokes, or you find me amusing whatsoever. I definitely mix some mirth up on the social media.
I love it.
Thank you, sir.
They often give me the belly laughs. I enjoy your puns very much, so.
Love to hear it. When I was being open and honest about my difficulties on the Twitter machine, I had a lot of what I call my nieces and nephews reach out and give me some words of support and explain about how much with my stupidness or dumbness I amuse them on a daily basis. That really does make me feel good. So that's great to hear. And again, as we spoke of earlier, if you need someone to talk to, we may not have the best advice, but we're willing to listen, both Chris Things and Jaims Vanderbeek.
Indeed. Well said, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well,
should we get out of here?
Let's get out of here. Let's shut this baby down. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. We super appreciate it. Thank you again.
Get swifty, everybody.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, thank you for being patient with us. If things don't always line up time wise, but we do our best.
On me.
No worries, brother.
All right, brother.
All right. Thanks a bunch, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Everybody knows that the bird is a word.